Hi, in this screencast I will show you how to make a second online form. Now in an earlier activity you already made a simple online form and you may be using it with your students, and both you and your students are getting used to it. So now what we'll do is I'll show you how to make a form that is a little bit more complicated, that includes form instructions and different kinds of response types. This will give you a variety of resources to draw on when making online forms. But we will continue to use the same principle, that we will use the same language as the lesson, with only the format, the online form, being new. You'll have to decide if you want to use all these new formats at once, and that's fine if you have intermediate students. If you have very low-level students, I would encourage only to have one new question type at a time, or response type at a time, when you have an online form. But the language needs to be the same as in the lesson. So to start, let's look at the lesson material. So this is from Staying Healthy Chapter 2, called Doctors, and this is the form that I've selected, the page that I've selected to convert to an online form. This is page 15 in Chapter 2. And this top part is an activity that you would have had your students do in class orally and then in writing as well, where they fill out a little bit of the form, they circle their responses, and then they check the symptoms that they've had now and in the past. So this is the activity that we will convert into digital form. And because the students will have already done it and be quite familiar with the language, it's the perfect candidate for having a digital format so that they can become used to that digital skill of filling out forms online. Alright, so let's get started making this online form. As before, you go to Google. In this case, I'm using Google Forms, but there are a variety of online form programs that you could use. This is just one I happen to be familiar with, and there are lots of learning opportunities online on how to make Google Forms. So if you want to have additional learning opportunities, just go to Google and search for how to make online forms with Google Forms, and you'll find lots of opportunities. So go to google.com and sign in. Now I have already signed in, so I'm going to go over to my the form I've already signed in with, and you go up to the Applications tab, and that's these boxes, and you go to Drive, and that's the three-colored triangle, and that's the Google Drive icon. So I'm going to click on that when I'm already there, so I guess I'm not needing it to show you a new screen. So I've got the forms, the online forms that I made in the last activity, Staying Healthy Chapter 1, and the response spreadsheet. Now I want to create a new one, and this is sometimes called new in some versions. On mine it says create, but it's big and it's red and it's right here in the corner, in the left corner. And I'm going to click on create and then a form. So I'm creating a Google form. So here comes my Google form. So we don't need any of these form settings. I don't know that there's anything in here that we need, and we certainly don't want our students to have to log on. We could put a progress bar at the bottom if we want to, but I'd rather not have that complication for now. But it is something you could do at some other time. Now, just like with the other form that you made, we're going to give it a title. In this case, Staying Healthy Chapter 2, Doctors is the name of this one. Now, one of the things we're going to add here is the form description, because these are instructions for completing this. And as in the lesson, there are some instructions. Fill out this health history form, use your dictionary to look up the words you don't know, save this form and bring it with you to your next checkup. Now, I'm not going to say save the form and bring it with you to your next checkup, because when you're in an online format, you don't typically print and take it with you, especially not in eCharts or eHealth portals, which is where one of our students may be filling out this form as a patient. So I'm just going to use the first ones. Staying healthy, so fill out the health history form. Okay, fill out this health history form. Use your dictionary to look up the words you don't know. Your doctor will discuss it with you at your next checkup. That's my approximation of what a person might see if they're filling out an online health history form. Okay, so I'm going to double click in the question title, and the first question is name. I'm going to do first name and last name in separate questions like I did in the last form because that is the most common way online forms work. So I'm going to do last name, and it's going to be a text format. So the question type is a text box response. This is what it looks like, and that's what we want it to be. And I'm going to add an item, first name, again, text. That's just the small box that looks like that. Done. Okay, first name, last name. Now the next question is the date of birth. And we could just have students fill in a text box, but one option is to use a question with a date response. Date of birth. And I'm putting it just exactly the way it is. Date of birth, and the B is not capitalized. All right. This time what I'm going to do, just for illustrative purposes, is use a date format. Now, depending on how many new question types you want to have in your form, you may or may not choose to do that now, but I want to show you how to do a date format question because students will see this in the real world in online forms all the time. So, date of birth, and then we've got these little drop downs. So let's look at what that looks like from the student's form, and that's to view the live form, and this is what the students will see. By clicking on that, I can look at what the students will see. So when it's the month, it'll be a drop-down menu. The day is a drop-down menu, and so is the year. So you can see that's what the students will see. And I'll go ahead and close that and to go ahead and leave the page. All right, so now we're going to go back to our form. I'm going to add another item. The next question is, after the date, is how is your health? And the options are excellent, good, fair, and poor. That is a multiple choice question, and so that's what we're going to put on here. How is your health? Question mark, multiple choice. In a multiple choice question, you can just give one answer, and that's important. Health, so it's excellent, good, and I can just tab down, or I can use my cursor and click down, either one, fair or poor, and then I'm done. So the students will just pick one of these. All right, I'm going to add an item. Have you been to the doctor for a checkup within the last year is the question now that I'm going to do. Have you been to the doctor for checkup within the last year? And if your variety, if you want to put a checkup, that's fine. And it's again a multiple choice, but with just two choices, yes or no. So let's go ahead and put that there. Have you been to the doctor for a checkup? In my variety of English, I use a checkup within the past year, question mark. And the answers are yes or no. So just multiple choice, yes or no. That means they have to choose one or the other. And the next question is, have you been to, whoops, to the, I can't type, dentist for a cleaning within the past year, question mark, and here we'll have yes, no, leaving the question type at multiple choice. Have you been to the doctor for a checkup? Have you been to the dentist for a cleaning? Yes, no, yes, no. Okay, so that's all good, and that's what the students have access to. So let me look at, I'm going to view the live form, and let's see what that looks like. Oh yeah, that's good. That's what we want it to look like. It's a very nice, tidy form. So the next thing we have to look at is check the symptoms you have now or had in the past. So, and there's a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different symptoms. And the reader or the student will check either now or in the past, both or neither. So in this case, we need people to be able to give more than one answer. And we are going to put this, the easiest way to do this is to put them into two separate questions. One having to do with symptoms being experienced now, and then a list of the symptoms. And another having to do with the symptoms that have been experienced in the past, and then a list of symptoms. So let's do that, and I'll show you how that works. All right, so check all of the symptoms that you have now, and I'm going to capitalize now. And we are going to, this one's called a checkbox. And a checkbox, you can check multiple answers. And so I'm just going to choose a subset, so you don't have to watch me type for this whole time. Allergies, cough, nausea, pain, and we'll do rash. Alright, so here's 5 that are illustrative of our list of 10. And then we'll say done. So I'm going to check to make sure that I'm right about the check boxes being that you can check more than one. So I'm going to go to viewing a live form. So how is your health? So it only allows one response. But check all of the symptoms that you have now allows multiple responses. Good. That's what we want. That's what we want. Alright, so I'll add the last item. Check all of the symptoms you had in the past. I'm using the same grammar form that they used in the lesson. It was used in the lesson. And I'm doing a checkbox response. And we're going to do allergies. Oops. Allergies, cough. Be as consistent as possible between the two. And rash. Done. Alright, so those are all the questions that are on this form over here that the students did, and now we want to go ahead and create our form. We don't want students to be able to submit more than once, so we're going to just not show the link on the bottom of the form, because then they would be able to do the form more than once, and then I would be collecting more than one information from each student. But I do want to publish and show the link to the form results, because for me that allows me to have control over how I distribute the form. So we're going to send the form, and this is the 3 different ways we can deliver this form to our students. We can send it through the system and put in our emails here. We can copy and paste the emails of our class, but not everybody in my class has emails. We can embed it in a web page from which the students can link, or, and this is what I like to do, this is a link that I can share with my class. So I'm going to highlight it and copy it. And then I'm going to open a document, and here I've already copied it, but I'm going to show you how to paste it again. And I'm going to paste the link and then when I push return, it automatically makes it live. So now what I have access to is when I'm with my students, I can deliver this in a way, either I can put it on the desktop of the computers that they're working on, or I can send it through a system that we have. At worst case scenario, we could type it. We don't want to do that because that's a really long link. And we can just, I'll show you what it looks like from the student's point of view. Click on the link, and here we have the online form that they are going to be filling out, which I think is a pretty good deal. So once I click done, so this is what it looks like. I click done, and this is the form, and it's complete. Now when I look back at my drive, I have 2 files associated with this online form. This is the actual online form, and I could go back and revise it or edit it. And then this is the spreadsheet in which the online responses will be collected. So as my students go to that link and fill in the online form, the information that's collected goes in here. When they do it, then all of the information that they enter. So this is how to make an online form. It has lots of different question types, and over time you can introduce these different question types to your students, and that builds their skill in the digital environment of online forms, which has a lot of benefit to them because then they're becoming used to using the device, whether it be a computer or some other kind. It might be a mobile device or their phone. But by learning how to do these things in a digital environment, it helps them to develop the digital skills they need to meet their goals outside of your class and with learning English. Thank you so much for watching.